Night arrives slowly, not as an event but as a condition. Light does not disappear all at once. It thins, it softens, it loosens its grip on surfaces. Leonardo da Vinci would have noticed this. He would have watched how shadows do not fall but slide, how edges do not vanish but blur. This way of seeing did not come from training, it came from time. Leonardo was born into a world that already existed without him. Hills shaped long before his arrival, waterways carved patiently through stone. Trees growing according to rhythms older than memory. The land near Vinci did not hurry, and neither did the child who watched it. As a boy, Leonardo spent long stretches of time doing very little, at least by outward measure. He stood still. He sat. He wandered without direction. But inside something was happening. His attention lingered. He watched how ants moved without colliding, how their paths crossed and separated, how order emerged without command. He watched water spill over rocks, noting how it split, how it curved, how it reunited downstream. The same movement repeated, but never exactly. This repetition without duplication fascinated him. Leonardo learned early that the world does not repeat itself mechanically. It repeats itself organically. Patterns return, details change. This distinction mattered deeply to him. Most people saw repetition as sameness. Leonardo saw it as variation. This is where his mind began, not with ambition, not with achievement, with attention. He did not yet know how to name what he was doing, but he felt it, a quiet pull toward watching longer than necessary, toward remaining after others lost interest. While other children moved on, Leonardo stayed. He stayed with the way light moved across grass, with the way clouds dissolved without effort, with the way sound faded into distance. He noticed that nothing ended abruptly in nature. Everything transitioned. This observation shaped him. Leonardo was born without legitimacy in the eyes of society. But nature did not recognize such distinctions. Water did not treat him differently. Trees did not ask for lineage. In this quiet equality, his mind found room to grow. There were no rigid expectations pressing against him early on, no inherited role demanding fulfillment. Instead, there was space. Space allowed wandering. Wandering allowed noticing. Noticing allowed understanding to begin. Leonardo began drawing not to create images, but to hold attention in place. A line slowed the eye. A curve extended a moment. Drawing became a way of staying longer with what he saw. He drew leaves again and again, not because the first drawing failed, but because each drawing revealed something new. The angle of a vein, the asymmetry of growth, the subtle imbalance that made the form alive. He learned that perfection was static, life was not. This lesson stayed with him. As he grew older and entered Florence, the world around him grew louder. Streets filled with voices, workshops with demands, patrons with expectations. But Leonardo carried the countryside within him. He moved through the city slowly. He observed faces the way he once observed hills. He noticed how emotion traveled across features, how a thought altered posture, how stillness carried tension beneath it. Florence rewarded speed and display. Leonardo preferred depth and delay. This made him difficult to place. He learned technique quickly, but he did not rush application. Before painting, he watched light fall across walls for hours. He observed how brightness softened toward shadow, how clarity dissolved gradually. He understood that reality did not present itself in outlines. It presented itself in transitions. This insight became central to his seeing. Leonardo's mind did not jump. It settled. Thoughts formed slowly, layering upon one another. He was not distracted. He was absorbed. Absorption is not restless. It is continuous. This continuity explains why his mind never rested, not because it was agitated, but because it was always present. Night after night, Leonardo watched the world quiet itself. He noticed that darkness did not erase form. It softened it. Edges disappeared. Essence remained. This comforted him. It suggested that understanding did not require full visibility, only patience. And so, from the very beginning, Leonardo learned something most never do, that the world reveals itself not to those who seek quickly, but to those who remain. And night, moving as slowly as breath, continued to arrive. Leonardo learned early that staying was an act of courage. Most people moved on not because they understood, but because they were finished looking. He was rarely finished. He discovered that the longer he remained with something, the more it changed, not in form but in meaning. A stone at first appeared solid, then textured, then layered, then ancient. The same stone revealed different truths depending on how long it was observed. Leonardo applied this patience everywhere. He stayed with a thought until it loosened. He stayed with a question until it softened. He stayed with uncertainty until it felt familiar. Time, for him, was not something to be managed. It was something to be entered. He noticed that when he stopped measuring time, it stopped pressing back. Hours passed without being counted. Days unfolded without being named. This was not forgetfulness. It was immersion. In immersion, there is no urgency, only continuity. Leonardo carried this way of being into every place he lived. In Florence, he watched crowds as he once watched rivers. People flowed, they collided, they separated, patterns emerged. Ambition pulled some forward relentlessly. Fear held others in place. Most drifted somewhere in between. Leonardo did not judge this movement. He observed it. He noticed that hurry altered posture, that impatience sharpened faces, that calm smoothed gestures. These observations returned to him later, quietly shaping his work. When he painted, he did not invent expression. He remembered it. His figures seemed alive, not because they were dramatic, but because they were accurate. Accuracy required time. He watched how smiles formed slowly, how they reached the eyes or failed to, how tension lingered even in stillness. Nothing about the human body was fixed. Everything was in transition. Leonardo understood that capturing transition was more truthful than capturing position. This insight slowed him further. A finished image risked closing a movement. He preferred to suggest it. This is why so many of his works feel suspended, not incomplete, suspended. Like breath held gently, not forcibly. Leonardo's notebooks expanded during this period, not with conclusions but with returns. He returned to water repeatedly. He watched streams from different angles, at different times of day, after rain, during stillness. He noticed how water remembered obstacles, how flow changed after contact, how nothing returned exactly to its former path. These observations did not exhaust themselves, they deepened. The same was true of light. He observed light falling on walls, on skin, on fabric. He noticed that light revealed form by withdrawing from it. Shadow was not absence, it was information. This realization became central. Leonardo learned that understanding often comes not from what is present, but from what recedes. This applied to thought as well. When he forced an idea, it resisted. When he released it, it returned, transformed. Leonardo trusted this rhythm. He allowed ideas to leave knowing they would return if they mattered. This trust removed anxiety. He did not cling. He waited. Waiting, for Leonardo, was active. It involved attention without demand. As years passed, his pace slowed further. Not because his energy diminished, but because his alignment increased. He needed less movement to notice more. He could sit for long periods watching dust move in air, particles rising, settling, rising again. This small motion contained entire systems. Leonardo saw universes in details. This ability did not isolate him, it grounded him. While others chased novelty, Leonardo explored familiarity. Familiarity, he knew, was where depth hid. The world rewarded speed, but speed dulled perception. Leonardo accepted that he would never fully belong to the rhythm around him, and he was content with this. Belonging, he realized, was less important than coherence. His mind never rested because it was always with something, never racing ahead. never retreating, just remaining. Night after night he watched darkness gather, noticing how sound softened, how movement slowed, how presence expanded. In these moments, Leonardo felt closest to understanding, not because answers appeared, but because questions dissolved. The world did not need to explain itself when observed patiently, and so he remained, longer than most, quieter than many, attentive beyond necessity. Time continued its slow work, and Leonardo moved with it. Leonardo began to notice the body long before he understood it, not the body as an object, but as a process. He watched how people stood when they were waiting, how weight shifted almost imperceptibly from one foot to the other, how stillness was never truly still. Even at rest, the body moved, breath lifted the chest, muscles adjusted, balance recalibrated. This constant negotiation fascinated him. Leonardo realized that the body was never finished. It was always responding to air, to gravity, to thought. He spent long hours simply watching people breathe, not consciously, not dramatically, just the quiet rhythm of inhale and exhale. He noticed that breath changed with emotion, with anticipation, with fatigue. Breath was the body thinking aloud. This understanding stayed with him. When he later studied anatomy, it was not with detachment, it was with familiarity. He had already spent years observing bodies from the outside. Now he wanted to understand what sustained them from within. He approached anatomy slowly, with reverence, not as something to be conquered, but something to be listened to. Each muscle told a story of tension and release. Each tendon carried memory of motion. Each bone revealed how force traveled through structure. Leonardo noticed that the body was engineered, but not rigid. It was flexible by necessity, resilient through adaptation. The spine curved gently, absorbing shock, maintaining balance. The hand fascinated him endlessly, a network of small bones, levers, counterbalances, capable of strength and delicacy. Leonardo saw in the hand the same principles he saw in machines, but unlike machines, the hand learned, it adjusted. It responded to intention. This difference mattered. He understood that life was not mechanical, it was responsive. This realization deepened his respect for complexity. Leonardo spent long nights drawing the body not as an image but as a system, layer by layer, muscle over bone, skin over muscle, motion implied beneath form. He did not rush these studies. Sometimes he would return to the same drawing again and again, adjusting a curve, refining a connection, softening a transition. He was not seeking perfection. He was seeking coherence. Coherence required repetition. The same drawing, approached repeatedly, revealed different truths. On one day he noticed structure, on another movement, on another still balance. The body did not change. Leonardo did. He learned that understanding was cumulative. It gathered quietly. This approach shaped how he saw everything. He noticed that tension lived in the smallest places, a clenched jaw, a lifted shoulder, a held breath. Most people were unaware of these tensions. Leonardo was not. He saw how thought imprinted itself on flesh. This insight made his work feel alive. He did not invent realism. He observed it patiently. When he painted, he allowed bodies to breathe. They were never frozen, never rigid. Even in stillness, there was implied motion. This quality unsettled some viewers, but soothed others. It felt familiar, as if the image understood them. Leonardo understood that the body was not separate from the mind. They moved together. A thought altered posture. A posture altered thought. This loop interested him deeply. He began to see thinking itself as a physical act. The brain was not abstract. It was flesh. Ideas were not immaterial. They were processes. This grounded him. He did not elevate thought above the body. He anchored it within. As he aged, Leonardo became more aware of his own physical changes. Strength softened. Vision blurred slightly. Movement slowed, but awareness sharpened. He noticed that slowness allowed sensation to expand. Walking slowly, he felt the ground differently. Standing still, he noticed subtle shifts of balance. The body, like the mind, revealed more when rushed less. Leonardo accepted aging without resentment. Change was the rule he had always observed. Why would he resist it now? He treated his own body as he treated everything else. With attention, with patience, breath by breath. Night after night, he listened to his breathing, the way he once listened to water, rising, falling, never identical, never stopping. This rhythm calmed him. It reminded him that rest was not absence of motion. It was harmony within motion. The body did not sleep by becoming still. It slept by aligning. Leonardo understood this intuitively. His mind followed the same pattern, never stopping, but slowing, never ending, but settling. And as darkness thickened around him, the body continued its quiet work, breathing, adjusting, responding, holding the mind gently as it drifted deeper into continuity. Leonardo returned to nature again and again because nature never hurried him. It waited. Water became his longest conversation, not because it was dramatic, but because it was patient. He watched water move the way others watched stories unfold. At first glance, water seemed simple, clear, predictable, but Leonardo stayed. He stayed long enough to see that water never repeated itself, even when flowing through the same place. A stream followed familiar curves, yet every moment differed slightly. Speed changed with depth. Direction shifted with obstruction. Surface reflected light differently with every breath of air. This subtle variation absorbed him. He realized that water remembered, not in the way humans remember, but in how it carried the influence of everything it touched. A stone altered its flow, a branch redirected its path, a slight incline reshaped its speed. Nothing passed through water without consequence. Leonardo understood this deeply. He began to see memory not as storage, but as transformation. Water did not hold on to the past. It was shaped by it. This idea returned to him often. He watched rain gather on leaves, how droplets merged slowly, how weight increased until release became inevitable. The moment of falling was not sudden. It was prepared. Leonardo noticed this everywhere. Nothing happened without preparation. Even collapse followed logic. This calmed him. It suggested that disorder was only misunderstood order. Leonardo sketched water endlessly, whirlpools, eddies, gentle currents. He traced their forms with the same care he gave to muscles and bones. He saw that water followed the same principles as the body. Flow depended on structure. Resistance created form. Motion revealed design. The boundary between nature and anatomy dissolved. Leonardo did not see rivers as separate from veins. He did not see erosion as separate from aging. Everything moved according to pressure and release. He spent long hours near rivers, sitting without distraction, watching, not waiting for insight, allowing it. Insight arrived quietly. It arrived in the recognition that force was rarely direct. Water did not strike stone. It persisted. This persistence impressed him more than strength. Leonardo carried this lesson inward. He stopped forcing ideas, stopped pushing understanding. He allowed thoughts to move around obstacles rather than confront them. When resistance appeared, he redirected attention. This made his thinking fluid. He learned to trust slow influence over sudden impact. Nature never argued. It demonstrated. Leonardo preferred demonstration. He believed truth did not need defense. It revealed itself through consistency. This belief shaped his temperament. He grew less reactive, more observant. He accepted uncertainty as a necessary condition of understanding. Water never explained itself. It moved. Leonardo followed. He noticed that watching water slowed his breathing. His thoughts lengthened. Time stretched. Minutes lost their edges. This state felt familiar. It resembled sleep but without unconsciousness, a calm awareness. Leonardo recognized that this state was where his best thinking occurred. Not when striving, not when proving, but when attention softened. He began to seek this condition deliberately, returning to rivers, to flowing channels, to quiet basins. Water taught him how to remain present without effort. It taught him that rest was not inactivity, but continuity without resistance. Leonardo's mind never rested because it learned how to flow, not rushing, not stopping, adapting. Night often found him near water. Darkness removed distraction. Reflections softened. Sound deepened. The river continued, unconcerned with observation. Leonardo remained, unconcerned with outcome. In these moments he felt aligned, not separate from the world, not above it, within it. And as water moved endlessly forward, never arriving, never concluding, Leonardo understood that this was the natural rhythm of thought. Not answers, but movement, not conclusions, but continuity. And night, patient and unhurried, continued to hold both. Leonardo watched light the way others watched movement, not for spectacle, but for behavior. Light interested him because it never stayed still, even when its source did. A candle flame flickered, sunlight shifted with the hour, reflections softened with distance. Leonardo noticed that light revealed the world by withdrawing from it. It did not define objects with certainty. It suggested them. Edges dissolved gently, forms emerged gradually. This subtlety fascinated him. He realized that nothing in nature announced itself sharply. Everything arrived by degree. He studied how light rested on skin, how it curved around the nose, how it lingered on the cheek before fading. He noticed that shadow was not absence. It was presence of depth. Shadow gave form its weight. Leonardo spent long hours simply watching light move across a wall. At different times of day, in different seasons. Morning light felt tentative, evening light felt reflective. Each carried a different mood. He learned that light altered perception without changing structure. The wall remained the same. The experience did not. This observation taught him something essential. Reality did not change as much as interpretation did. Leonardo carried this insight into everything. He understood that truth was rarely direct. It was mediated, by angle, by distance, by attention. He stopped seeking clarity through sharpness. He sought it through softness. This was revolutionary. At a time when lines defined certainty, Leonardo blurred them intentionally, not to confuse, but to be honest. He noticed that the eye never perceived a perfect outline, it inferred it. Vision was an act of interpretation. Leonardo respected this. He did not force the eye, he guided it. This made his work feel alive. Viewers felt movement even in stillness. Leonardo returned to this study repeatedly. Light on water, light on stone, light on fabric. Each surface responded differently. Water broke light into fragments. Stone absorbed it. Fabric diffused it gently. He learned that material and illumination were inseparable. Form was not fixed, it was relational. Leonardo applied this understanding inward. He realized that thoughts behaved like light. They shifted with context. They softened with distance. They sharpened only when forced. Forcing created distortion. He allowed thoughts to remain partially defined. This gave them depth. Leonardo was not interested in absolute answers. He was interested in accurate impressions. Impressions carried more truth than declarations. As he aged, his sensitivity to light deepened. Vision became less sharp, but perception became richer. He noticed nuance more than contrast. He learned that losing precision did not mean losing understanding. Sometimes it enhanced it. The world appeared less rigid, more forgiving. This comforted him. He understood now that clarity was not the same as certainty. Clarity could exist alongside ambiguity. Light taught him this. Leonardo accepted ambiguity as natural. He no longer tried to resolve it. He allowed it to exist. Night revealed this most clearly. In darkness, forms simplified. Details disappeared. Essence remained. Leonardo felt at ease in this reduction. It mirrored his inner state. Less urgency, less need to define, more acceptance. He sat quietly as light faded, watching the last reflections dissolve. He noticed how the world did not collapse into darkness. It transitioned, just as water flowed. Just as breath continued, light withdrew slowly, leaving behind understanding rather than emptiness. Leonardo's mind followed the same path, not stopping, not ending. Softening, night deepened, shadows expanded, and within this gentle obscurity, the mind that never rested found itself drifting further into calm continuity. Leonardo measured time differently, not by clocks, not by appointments, but by return. A thought that returned was important. A question that returned was essential. He noticed that trivial curiosities vanished quickly. True ones circled back, again and again. Years later, the same question would appear, unchanged. Why does water spiral? Why does smoke coil upward? Why does the human face reveal emotion before thought? Leonardo did not rush to answer. He let questions age. He believed that time refined inquiry. A rushed answer closed the door. A delayed one widened it. This is why his notebooks feel unfinished. They were never meant to be finished. They were meant to breathe. Leonardo returned to the same page years later and added a line, a correction, a new sketch. Not because he was uncertain, but because certainty evolves. He trusted revision. In his mind, understanding was not a destination, it was a cycle. This made him immune to boredom. Repetition never felt redundant. Each return revealed difference. A muscle understood better, a mechanism refined, a concept softened. Leonardo accepted that progress was circular. He saw this everywhere. The seasons, the tides, the breath. Nothing moved forward without looping. Time itself was layered. Past insight informed present perception. Present observation reshaped memory. Leonardo lived inside this loop. His notebooks reflected it. Ideas reappeared across decades. Water studies beside anatomy, architecture beside botany. He did not separate disciplines. The separation itself felt artificial. Nature did not divide knowledge. Why should he? This refusal to compartmentalize made his thinking fluid. He could move from veins to rivers effortlessly. Both branched, both flowed, both responded to pressure. The human body was not separate from the earth. It was a continuation. Leonardo believed this deeply. He studied erosion with the same attention as skin. He observed cracks in stone as if they were wrinkles. Time shaped everything gently but persistently. Nothing resisted it forever. Leonardo respected this. He did not fight decay. He studied it. Aging fascinated him. He watched how faces softened, how posture shifted, how strength gave way to balance. He understood that aging was not loss, it was redistribution. Energy moved inward. Speed became depth. He felt this within himself. As years passed, his movement slowed, but his thoughts widened. He no longer chased completion. He allowed incompletion. An unfinished work still held truth. A partial sketch could reveal more than a polished one. This comforted him. He had left many works unfinished, not from failure, from evolution. The idea outgrew the form. He refused to trap it. Leonardo learned to stop when stopping felt right, not when obligation demanded. This frustrated patrons, but preserved his integrity. Time was not a resource to exploit, it was a medium to inhabit. Leonardo inhabited time fully, slowly, attentively. He noticed that most people hurried through moments as if trying to escape them. Leonardo stayed. He remained with an idea until it revealed itself. Sometimes that took years. Sometimes it never fully happened. That was acceptable. Mystery was not a problem. It was a companion. As night returned, Leonardo reflected on cycles. Sleep itself was a cycle. The mind releasing control, then returning renewed. He trusted this rhythm. He did not force wakefulness. He let thoughts dissolve into rest, knowing they would return. And when they did, they would bring something new. Not answers, but perspective. This was enough. Leonardo rested within recurrence. The mind that never rested did not mean relentless motion. It meant continuous curiosity. Curiosity did not exhaust him. It sustained him, like water flowing downhill, like breath repeating quietly. The night held him gently. Time folded around his thoughts. And within this calm repetition, Leonardo's consciousness continued its slow, endless return. Leonardo listened more than he spoke, not only to people, but to places. To rooms after everyone had left, to workshops when tools rested, to water moving through stone. Silence was never empty to him, it was informative. When the noise stopped, patterns emerged. He noticed how dripping water never repeated itself exactly. The sound was similar but never identical. Each drop carried a different weight, a different speed, a different moment. Leonardo learned from this. He understood that nature avoided repetition, even when appearing consistent. This made him patient. He knew that if he watched long enough, difference would reveal itself. So he watched. Water fascinated him more than anything else. He called it the blood of the earth. He studied rivers as living beings. He drew whirlpools endlessly, not to copy them, but to understand their intention. Water did not move randomly. It obeyed invisible laws. Leonardo wanted to see those laws. He followed streams for hours, observed how water curved around obstacles, how it slowed, accelerated, divided. He noticed that resistance did not stop flow, it shaped it. This insight stayed with him. Obstacles were not failures, they were instructions. The same applied to thought. When his mind met resistance, he did not push harder. He redirected. Leonardo allowed ideas to find their own path. This made his thinking fluid. Rigid minds broke, flexible ones adapted. He trusted adaptation. Water never argued with the landscape. It collaborated. Leonardo adopted this posture toward life. He did not dominate nature, he aligned with it. Even his inventions followed this principle. He designed machines that mimicked movement rather than forced it. Bird wings inspired flight, muscles inspired levers, bones inspired structure. Nature had already solved most problems. Leonardo only needed to notice. At night he returned to water in his thoughts. How rivers carved valleys over centuries, how persistence outperformed force. Time plus flow created transformation. This comforted him. Great change did not require urgency, only continuity. Leonardo slept knowing this. The night felt like a river, slow, dark, moving forward quietly. He allowed his thoughts to drift. He did not cling to them. Ideas like water returned when needed, sometimes in dreams. Dreams mattered to Leonardo, not as prophecy, but as recombination, the mind rearranging observations, fragments forming new connections. He trusted dreams as collaborators, not messages but movements. When he woke, he often sketched immediately, capturing something before it dissolved, not to preserve it perfectly, just enough to remember the direction. Leonardo never tried to capture everything. He knew that fullness overwhelmed. Essence was lighter. This made his work timeless. He avoided excess. Clarity mattered more than decoration. Even beauty followed function. True beauty emerged when nothing unnecessary remained. Leonardo believed this. He simplified relentlessly, not by removing depth, but by removing noise. This allowed calm. Calm allowed insight. Insight required stillness. Stillness was rare. Leonardo protected it. He walked alone often, preferred solitude to conversation. Not from arrogance, from sensitivity. Too many voices disrupted internal rhythm. Leonardo needed space. Space to let thought unfold naturally. He was not escaping people. He was returning to alignment. Alignment felt like peace. In this peace, ideas emerged gently, not with urgency, but with inevitability. Leonardo trusted inevitability. What mattered would return. What did not could leave. As night deepened, his breathing slowed. Thoughts softened. Water continued flowing in his mind, unconcerned with destination. Only movement. And within this quiet flow, Leonardo rested, not stopping, but circulating. The mind that never rested knew how to drift. And drifting was its own form of wisdom. As the night stretched on, Leonardo's mind wandered toward time itself, not clocks, not hours, but duration. He sensed that time was not a straight line, but a current, sometimes fast, sometimes still. He noticed that moments of deep focus felt shorter than moments of waiting. That boredom expanded time. Curiosity collapsed it. From this, he learned something subtle. Time was not fixed. Perception shaped it. Leonardo began to live accordingly. He filled his days with attention, so time would not feel heavy. He avoided hurry. Haste distorted perception. When rushed, the mind skipped layers. Leonardo wanted layers. He wanted to see beneath surfaces. He studied faces for this reason, not beauty, expression. He watched how muscles moved beneath skin, how thought shaped the face before words did. A raised eyebrow arrived before doubt was spoken, a tightened jaw before resistance. Faces told the truth earlier than language. Leonardo trusted what came first. He sketched faces endlessly, old men, children, workers, nobles. Wrinkles fascinated him. They were maps of repetition, smiles repeated, frowns reinforced, lives carved into skin. He believed the face remembered what the mind tried to forget. This is why his portraits feel alive. They are not frozen moments. They are accumulated moments, layers of lived time resting quietly. At night, Leonardo replayed these observations. Faces merged with landscapes. Wrinkles echoed river paths. Expressions mirrored erosion. Everything followed the same principles: pressure, release, repetition. Nothing escaped these laws. This unified his thinking. Art and science were not separate. They were perspectives, two languages describing the same structure. Leonardo moved freely between them. He refused labels. Painter was too narrow, scientist too rigid, inventor too mechanical. He was an observer. That was enough. Observation required humility. He did not assume superiority over nature. He approached it as a student. Even late in life, he wrote notes to himself like questions. Why does smoke curl? Why do shadows soften at distance? Why does sound fade unevenly? He never replaced curiosity with certainty. Certainty closed doors. Curiosity kept them open. This made his mind young. Age touched his body, but not his attention. At night, attention softened, but did not disappear. It widened. He no longer focused sharply. He allowed associations. Bird flight connected to clouds, clouds to hair, hair to water, water to muscle. Everything flowed into everything else. Leonardo enjoyed this state. It felt like floating, not sleeping, not waking, between. This in-between space was where his best ideas lived. He never forced them out. He waited. Patience was his most refined skill. He understood that forcing insight produced shallow results. Depth required surrender. So he surrendered. To the dark. To the quiet. To not knowing. In this surrender, his mind reorganized itself. Problems untangled naturally. Connections aligned without effort. Leonardo trusted this process. He trusted the intelligence of rest. The night was not empty. It was active beneath the surface, like roots growing unseen. When morning came, growth would reveal itself. But now, there was no need to rush there. Now was enough. Breath slowed. Thoughts loosened. Awareness remained, but without tension. Leonardo drifted again, not asleep, not awake, floating in the slow rhythm of a mind that never rested, but knew how to rest deeply. In the deepest hours of the night, Leonardo's thoughts became less verbal. Language dissolved first. Images remained, shapes without names, movements without explanation. He trusted these more than words. Words arrived late, forms arrived early. Before a concept could be spoken, it existed as motion, a curve, a tension, a balance. Leonardo learned to think this way. He believed the world spoke in geometry long before it spoke in sentences. This is why he drew so much. Drawing was thinking without interruption. The hand moved faster than language. Lines revealed truths that speech distorted. At night, he replayed drawings in his mind, not as pictures but as gestures. The sweep of a shoulder, the tilt of a wing, the spiral of water. These gestures repeated across nature, different forms, same grammar. Leonardo noticed that nature preferred curves. Straight lines were rare. Even when something appeared straight, it softened upon closer inspection. Bones curved, trees bent, horizons wavered. Perfection was flexible. Rigidity belonged to machines, not life. This realization shaped his inventions. He avoided straight force. He designed for absorption. Shock should be distributed, weight shared. This made structures resilient. Nature never reinforced one point alone. It spread stress across systems. Leonardo adopted systems thinking before the term existed. Everything depended on everything else. Failure happened when balance was ignored. At night, he reviewed failures calmly, unfinished paintings, abandoned machines, ideas that led nowhere. He did not judge them. They were steps. Exploration demanded loss. He accepted that most attempts would not resolve. Resolution was rare. Process was constant. Leonardo found peace in this. Completion was not the goal. Understanding was. Sometimes understanding required leaving things open. He allowed ambiguity. This is why his notebooks feel alive. They are conversations, not conclusions. Questions breathe between pages. He wrote reminders to himself. Observe again. Wait. Do not assume. These were not instructions. They were attitudes. Leonardo lived inside inquiry. Even rest was inquiry. In the dark, his body released effort. Muscles softened, but awareness remained curious. It did not search. It received. This receptive state felt expansive. Thoughts arrived from unexpected directions, not solutions, perspectives. He understood that perspective mattered more than answers. Answers closed stories. Perspectives opened them. Leonardo preferred openings. This made his work unfinished yet endlessly generative. Centuries later, people would still enter his thinking because he never sealed it. At night, this openness felt natural. The world did not demand certainty, only presence. Leonardo offered presence generously. He did not dominate his thoughts. He allowed them to exist, like stars scattered across the sky. No need to connect them yet. Connections happened naturally when the time was right. For now, distance was enough. Silence deepened. Breath slowed further. Thoughts became sparse. Between them, something wider emerged. Not emptiness, potential. Leonardo rested inside potential. A field of quiet readiness. Nothing urgent, nothing missing. Just the gentle awareness of being alive inside a universe that never stopped moving. And in this movement his mind floated, not striving, not stopping, simply continuing. As the night reached its quietest point, Leonardo's mind turned inward, not toward memory but toward sensation, the feeling of breath entering, the subtle weight of the body resting, the barely perceptible pulse beneath the skin. He noticed how the body worked without instruction. The heart did not ask permission. The lungs did not wait for thought. Life moved itself. This fascinated him. The most complex systems required the least conscious control. Leonardo saw wisdom in this. Control was overrated. Coordination was superior. He applied this insight everywhere. In machines, in compositions, in living. The body taught him restraint. It did not rush healing. It did not force growth. It followed timing. Leonardo respected timing. He learned that forcing progress often delayed it. So he learned to pause. Not inactivity, alignment. At night, alignment came easily. The world asked nothing. No patrons, no deadlines, no expectations, only being. Leonardo valued these hours deeply. They restored proportion. During the day, details expanded. At night, everything returned to scale. Human ambition shrank. Nature widened. This perspective grounded him. He remembered that no single invention, no painting, no discovery could compete with the quiet intelligence of existence itself. This humility protected him. It kept his curiosity gentle. He never sought domination, only participation. Leonardo believed humans were guests in nature, not rulers. Guests observed respectfully. They listened more than they spoke. They learned the rhythm of the house. Leonardo learned the rhythm of the world. He noticed cycles. Work followed rest. Light followed dark. Focus followed diffusion. Ignoring cycles caused imbalance. Balance required honoring transitions. Night was a transition, not an end, not an absence, a preparation. He allowed his thoughts to loosen further. They no longer formed sequences. They drifted like mist. Images faded into sensation, sensation into stillness, stillness into awareness. There was no effort here, only presence. Leonardo remained present even as thinking slowed. This was not sleep. It was something adjacent, a state where insight rested quietly, waiting. He trusted waiting. Waiting was not empty. It was charged. Like a bow drawn but not released, energy held gently. He breathed into this space. Long breaths, unforced. Each breath smoothing internal noise. He did not search for meaning. Meaning appeared when needed. For now, quiet was enough. The night held him. The same night that held rivers, clouds, animals, and cities asleep. Leonardo felt connected to all of it, not intellectually, viscerally, a simple belonging. He was not separate from the dark, he was part of it. And in this belonging, the mind that never rested finally stopped moving forward. It hovered, suspended, ready but not pushing. A still flame inside a vast calm. Somewhere deep in the night, Leonardo's awareness thinned even more. Thought no longer arrived as ideas. It arrived as atmosphere, a sense of openness, of space without edges. The mind no longer asked questions. It simply observed what remained. Breath, weight, warmth. The quiet intelligence of the body carrying him without instruction. Leonardo trusted this intelligence. He had seen it everywhere, in plants turning toward light without knowing the word light, in birds navigating vast distances without maps, in water finding the sea without planning. Nature did not doubt itself. It moved. Leonardo admired this deeply. Doubt, he realized, was a human excess. Useful at first, harmful when prolonged. Once observation had done its work, movement should follow. At night, movement became internal. Subtle adjustments, letting go. He released the need to hold ideas. Ideas could wait. They always returned. What mattered now was rhythm. The slow rhythm of the dark. Night did not hurry toward morning. It unfolded fully. Leonardo allowed himself to unfold with it. Muscles softened further. The face lost expression. Even the habitual tension of the brow released. He felt lighter. Not in body, but in intention. There was no intention now. Only presence. This was rare during the day. Day demanded direction. Night permitted being. Leonardo valued this permission. It restored proportion between effort and existence. He remembered that he was not required to produce constantly. Creation was cyclical. Output depended on absorption. Night was absorption. The mind drank quietly, even without awareness, even without memory. This nourishment would surface later, in a drawing, in a line of thought, in a sudden clarity. But now nothing needed to surface. The darkness was complete enough, the silence wide enough. Leonardo drifted deeper. The boundary between him and the world softened. Sounds were distant, then gone. Time lost sequence. Minutes no longer stacked. They blended. There was no past here, no future. Only this gentle suspension, like being underwater, held by pressure evenly. No direction preferred, no effort required. The mind that never rested did not resist this. It recognized rest as another form of movement, slower, wider, less defined. In this state, Leonardo did not think of legacy. He did not think of unfinished work. He did not think of names or centuries. Those belonged to daylight. Here, there was only being, breathing, existing, part of a larger quiet that held everything equally, and held it without judgment. As the night moved past its deepest point, Leonardo's awareness became almost transparent, not fading, thinning, like mist dispersing without vanishing. Thoughts no longer formed shapes. They arrived as sensations, then passed. No resistance followed. This felt natural. Leonardo had learned long ago that holding required effort, but releasing did not. The body understood this instinctively. Breath slowed further, almost unnoticed. Each inhale arrived quietly. Each exhale left without trace. There was no need to follow it. Breathing happened on its own. This autonomy comforted him. It reminded him that life continued even when the mind stepped aside. He had spent years studying control, levers, gears, mechanisms, but now he understood something deeper. The most elegant systems required no supervision. They balanced themselves. Leonardo admired balance, not symmetry. Balance. Symmetry was rigid, balance was responsive. Night was balanced, dark but not heavy, silent but not empty. It held potential without urgency. Leonardo allowed himself to dissolve into this state. Identity softened, names loosened, roles disappeared. There was no artist here, no thinker, no observer, only presence. Even presence began to thin. The boundary between inside and outside became indistinct. The same quiet that filled the room seemed to fill him. He did not analyze this. Analysis belonged to daylight. Here, experience was enough. He felt connected not through thought, but through shared stillness. The world rested with him. Trees held their breath. Water slowed. Animals slept. Cities hushed. Even distant movement felt gentle. Leonardo sensed this collective pause. It felt ancient, as if the world had always known how to rest together. Humans had simply forgotten. He did not try to remember. He let the forgetting happen. Memory faded, attention drifted, time lost definition. There was no sense of sequence, only continuity. This was not sleep yet, but it was close, a threshold. Leonardo hovered there comfortably, no desire to cross, no desire to return. Just suspension. In this state, nothing was demanded, nothing needed improvement. Existence was sufficient. The mind that never rested did not struggle here. It recognized this as familiar territory, a quiet field where nothing needed to be proven, where curiosity slept without dying, where understanding rested without disappearing. Leonardo remained here, softly, gently, without edges. Somewhere near the edge of sleep, Leonardo no longer felt the need to observe. Observation required distance. Here distance disappeared. There was no watcher and nothing being watched, only a quiet merging. The body rested fully now, its weight spread evenly, supported without effort. Muscles no longer held shape. They returned to softness. Even the subtle tension of posture released. Leonardo sensed this release without naming it. Naming required separation. This state asked for none. Thought had become unnecessary, not absent, but dormant. Like tools set down carefully, knowing they would be needed again. The mind trusted this pause. It had learned that nothing essential was lost in rest, only noise faded. The night wrapped around everything equally. It did not distinguish between stone and skin, between leaf and bone. All forms rested together. Leonardo felt part of this equality, not as an individual, but as presence. A simple existence within a larger calm. Time barely registered. Moments no longer followed one another. They overlapped gently, like waves smoothing into a single surface. There was no urge to move forward, no memory pulling backward, just a wide stillness. Even curiosity, his lifelong companion, rested, not extinguished, sleeping, ready to wake when morning invited it. For now it remained quiet. Leonardo did not resist this quiet. Resistance required effort. This state required nothing. Breath moved shallowly, soft and even. The body knew exactly how much was needed, no more, no less. This precision comforted him. Nature was always precise when allowed to function undisturbed. Leonardo had spent his life trying to learn this lesson. Now he was simply living it. Awareness thinned further. Edges softened completely. There was no clear boundary between thought and rest, between awareness and sleep. He hovered there, unconcerned, safe. The mind that never rested did not fear stillness. It recognized it as the source from which all movement returned, and so it stayed. quiet. Balanced, suspended gently in the long, unbroken calm of night. At the far edge of the night, Leonardo's awareness no longer hovered. It settled, not downward, not inward, simply settled, like dust resting after motion has ended. There was no transition to mark it, no moment of crossing, only the absence of effort. Breathing continued somewhere, but without notice. The body remained, but without commentary. Thoughts did not stop. They became irrelevant. They passed without leaving shape. Like ripples smoothing into still water, Leonardo no longer sensed himself as separate from the quiet. The quiet was not surrounding him. It was inclusive. Everything belonged to it. The room, the walls, the distant world beyond them. Even memory rested. The past did not pull. The future did not call. Time loosened completely, not slowed, unheld. In this state there was nothing to observe, nothing to improve, nothing to understand. Understanding was unnecessary. Existence required no explanation. Leonardo had spent a lifetime seeking structure. Now structure dissolved naturally, not into chaos, but into simplicity. The simplest state, being, no role, no name, no direction, just quiet continuity. The same continuity that carried rivers, that moved clouds, that aged mountains. It carried him too, without effort, without intention. The mind that never rested recognized this not as an ending, but as its deepest rhythm. Movement without awareness of movement, presence without attention, rest without sleep, or perhaps sleep without boundary. There was no distinction left, only a gentle, sustained calm that did not need to be held. And so it remained, unbroken, unannounced, complete.